Okay, so today we are learning about simple interest. So if we read a little bit about it, up here at the top of your notes page. Simple interest is the amount of money paid or earned for the use of money. To find simple interest, which we're going to call I, we're going to use the formula I equals PRT. Principal, which is my P, is the amount of money deposited or invested. Okay. R is my rate, which is the annual interest rate written as a decimal. This part is very important. It has to be written as a decimal, okay? Which we'll get to that in just a second when we get to an example. And then time T is going to be the amount of time that the money is invested in years. Okay. So let's look at example 1 to see exactly what all that means. So first I know that my formula is I equals PRT. So I'm going to go ahead and copy it down right here. Okay. But before I go any further, I want to define what P, R, and T actually is. Okay. So P, if you look up here where we underlined, it's my principal, and it's the amount of money deposited or invested. So if I read my problem, it says find the simplest interest earned in a savings account where $136 is deposited for 2 years if the interest rate is 7.5% per year. So what part of that tells me how much money I'm depositing or investing? $136. So that's going to be my P. Okay. So P is $136. Now I want to find my R, which up here it tells me R is the annual interest rate that's written as a decimal. So what is my interest rate? 7.5%, but it's given to me as a percent, and I need it to be a decimal. So I think yesterday when we were talking about percent of change, when we started with a decimal and we wanted to convert that decimal into a percent, what did we do when we converted the decimal to percent? Olivia?
Move the decimal over to or multiply by 100.
Good. You move that decimal place over to the right, or you multiply 100. So here, we're doing the opposite because we're changing a percent into a decimal. So what's the opposite of multiply? Divide. So we can either divide by 100, or we can move that decimal point 2 places to the left, which is opposite. Okay. So whichever you choose to do, I'm just going to move my decimal place because I think that's a little bit easier and it takes less time. Okay. So, but let's go ahead and write that so that we don't forget exactly how to do it. So what we're going to do here is we want to change this to a decimal. By moving the decimal point two positions in what direction? Left. To the left. Or divide by 100. Whichever one you choose, okay? Can y'all read that okay? Change to decimal by moving the decimal point 2 positions to the left or dividing by 100. Alright. We got that copied yet? Okay, so let's actually do that. So I have 7.5%, right? I'm changing it to a decimal. So I'm going to move this decimal place 2 places to the left. When I do that, what do I have to add? A 0. So my R is going to become 0.075. Okay. Good on that part?
Can you say that one more time?
So my original is 7.5%. So my decimal point is in between my 7 and my 5. So to change it to a decimal, take it out of percentage form, I'm moving it to the left 2 positions. If I move it to the left 2 positions, that means I have to add a 0 right there in front of my 7. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so I found my P and my R. Now I need to find my T. So if you read up here, it tells me that time, or T, is the amount of time the money is invested in years, which is 2 in this problem. I'm investing for 2 years. Okay, so now that I know my P, my R, and my T, I'm going to go back and plug it into my formula. So I is going to equal, that means PRT. What am I doing here with all those numbers? I'm going to multiply them all together. So I'm going to put everything in parentheses. I'm not going to use a dot since I have decimals in some of my answers. I don't want that multiplication dot to get confused with decimals and whatnot. Okay, so I'm going to put all of my numbers in parentheses, which tells me to multiply. So I've got 136 times 0.075 times 2. And then I just need to actually multiply all those numbers out. So do that real quick in your calculator. $20.4? Okay, so what I'm finding here is my simple interest, which, remember, it's the amount of money paid or earned. So it's going to be, every answer is going to be in dollars, in money, okay? So that means every answer needs to be rounded to the nearest hundredth or to 2 decimal places, because we always deal with money with 2 decimal places, right? So what do I need to add here? A 0. So that tells me that my simple interest is $20.40. Okay. To the left, yes. We move it to the right when we're going from decimal to percent. In this case, we're going from percent to decimal, so we do the opposite. So move to the left. Yes, because our interest rate's always going to be given to us in percent. Yes, ma'am.
Is this actually something that
You will use in real life? Yes, definitely. Okay. All right. Example number 2 is a little bit different because let's read it first. It says find the simple interest for $600 invested at 8.5% for 6 months. So example 1, we were dealing with years, right? This case, we're doing it with months. Remember that up here where I'm talking about T, it tells me that T has to be measured in amount of years. So we're going to have to do some conversions here, okay? But first, let's just start out by defining our variables. So I equals PRT. What is my P? $600. What is my R? 8.5%. But I need to change that to a decimal, right? So I need to move that decimal place 2 places to the left, which means I have to add a 0. So R is 0.085. Good on that part? Okay. So now T. My T in this case is 6 months. But T always has to be measured in years. So I need to convert this to years. So since we're talking about 6 months, we probably can go ahead and say that it is half a year, right? We know that 6 months is half a year. But if we didn't know that off the top of our head, how could we figure it out? Do we know?
Count how many days are in a year.
That would take a long time. How many months are in 1 year? 12. So however many months we have, we're just going to divide it by 12. Okay? So we could do 6 divided by 12. So even if I'm trying to figure out 2.5 months, I can divide 2.5 by 12 and it will convert it to years for me. Okay? So what's 6.5 simplified? 1/2 or 0.5. You can write it either way in fraction form or decimal form. Whichever one you prefer. Okay, it doesn't matter. Questions on that part, converting to months. So you're always just going to divide however many months you have by 12. Okay. But if it's given to you in years already, like example 1, we don't have to do anything with that. We only have to convert if it's given to us in months. We're going to convert that to years. Okay. So now I know. Question?
So all we do is simplify or divide?
Well, first you're going to divide however many months you have by 12. And then just simplify from there. Okay. Okay, so now I'm ready to plug those numbers into my formula. So my P is 600. My R is 0.085. And my T, do y'all want to use 1/2 or 0.5? 0.5, okay.
1/2.
Alright, so when I multiply all that together in my calculator, what am I going to get? 25.5. So if I'm talking about money, it's going to be 25.50 or $25.50. Questions on example 1 or 2? Alright, let's look at a couple examples. A couple more examples. Let's do, guys, please quit talking. Let's do number 1 together. Zoom in a little bit. Alright, so if you read the directions, it says that we're still finding the simple interest earned to the nearest cent. Okay, so to 2 decimal places for each principal, interest rate, and time. So it's given to us in that order: principal, interest rate, time. Okay. But first, before I do anything, what do I have to do with this 5%? Change it to a decimal. So if I'm looking at the number 5, my decimal point comes right after it, right? So if I move that decimal point 2 places to the left, that means it becomes 0.05. So now P is going to be 300 times 0.05. That's a 0.05. Sorry. Times 2. We're dealing with 2 years right here, so I don't have to convert anything. So what do I get when I multiply all those 3 numbers together?
30.
3 or 30? So my answer is $30. Okay.
$30,000.
We're going to do a couple more together. Okay. All right, let's skip number 2 and move on to number 3. Actually, we're going to skip and move to 4. So we're going to move over here to example number 4. Okay. So number 4 is what we're talking about now. So I've got $735, 7%, and 2.5 years. Okay. First thing I need to do is convert that 7 to a decimal. So what is it? 0.07. So then I'm going to multiply 735 times 0.07 times 2.5. If I wanted to change 2.5 to a decimal, what would it be? 2.5. You don't have to change it. Remember, 1/2 as a decimal is 0.5. You don't have to change it if you don't want to. I personally just think it's a lot easier to type in a decimal than it is a fraction on your calculator. So if it's easy like that to change to a decimal in your head, I would just go ahead and change it to a decimal. What do I get? Say that again. 128 point some decimals. Did everybody get 128 point something? Okay. So it's 128 point. Guys, quit talking. Braylon, what are the decimals after it? 0.625. So how do I round that if I'm talking about money? Okay. Wonderful. This 5 right here tells me to bump the 2 up. So it's 128.63. So my answer is $128.63. Okay. Questions on that one? Okay, let's do one that has months. So we're going to skip over here to number 7. So I have $903. I have 8.75% in 18 months. How do I change 8.75% to a decimal? Two to the left. Or Olivia, you can divide by 100 if that's what you want to do. Okay. So my new R is going to be 0.0875. And then my 18 months. Remember that T has to be in years. So I need to convert 18 months into years. Olivia. Wonderful. 18 divided by 12. And then when I do that, I get 1.5. So remember, you're dividing however many months you're given by 12. All right, so now I'm ready to plug it in my formula. So P equals 903 times 0.0875 times 1.5. Okay. 118 point. Okay. 52 what? 518. Is that what you said to me? Okay. So 118.518. How do I need to round this if I'm dealing with money? The 8 tells me to bump that 1 up to a 2. So my final answer is $118.52. Do we all agree? Do I need to work out some more examples, or are we ready to get started on our homework? Bless you. Okay. Do we all have this example copy? Guys, I'm not done yet, so you're not talking. All right, your homework is page 361, numbers 8 through 18. You should be able to finish this today, especially when we come back from lunch, okay? So everybody get started on your homework, so there should not be very much talking going on. You've at least got 8 minutes until, yeah, that's fine. You've at least got 8 minutes to work on this before we go to lunch.
Wait, so that was the pipe.